Welcome along for pedaling the long way, as this ride goes into that particular kind of quiet. You know, that quiet that only really exists deep in the winter forest. It's not silence exactly, but something a little softened. Snow, it absorbs the sound. The trees stand closer together. That early morning sunlight filtering through the branches, casting long shadows across the wide, shimmering stretches of snow, sparkling in the sunlight. In this ride, it was meant to be a mini adventure. Nothing epic, just a short out and back into the woods, with a cabin at the midpoint for a warming break and a coffee. So before heading out, I did what feels like the responsible thing for a mini adventure. I studied some online maps, I loaded those into the route. Into my GPS, I checked the forecast, so somewhere between minus 20 and minus 14 today. So with that in mind, I dressed accordingly, got my proper layers together. Nothing in this is experimental. Everything is tested. I've used it before. I know what I need. So on paper, it all felt manageable, straightforward even. But it's mini adventures that have that habit of offering just a little more than expected. The trail, it tightens almost immediately. It winds sharply between the trees. Deep snow, as you can see, piled high on either side of the path, leaving a narrow ribbon just wide enough for tires, as long as you stay honest. Climbing, at least it solves one problem. It's the best way to stay warm in this cold weather. But the real challenge is not staying too warm. Pushing uphill. Heart rate is rising quickly. Layers felt perfect when I'd left and minutes ago, but now it's beginning to suddenly feel a bit excessive. Sweat building up, it's becoming something that I'm actively working to avoid. Because you see, the most dangerous moment isn't the effort, it's stopping. Standing still to catch my breath, hands resting on the handlebars as I pause mid-push, steam building up inside my jacket, and that's when the chill can set in fast. So the pace, I'm keeping it measured. Slow enough to avoid overheating, steady enough because I want to keep moving. So winter in this ride doesn't reward rushing, and it certainly doesn't reward lingering around either. It's about finding that balance. Can't really cut any corners on this, or there's no shortcuts. Keep moving, just not moving too fast. And so if the climbs demand patience, the descents, they demand respect. The trail, it drops sharply in places. It's always twisting tightly between closely spaced trees. Again, with deep snow on either side, it looks forgiving, but it isn't. In fact, this is no place to cut corners. One wayward wheel off the trail, and it's buried up to the hub. Momentum gone, balance compromised. Lesson delivered quietly but firmly. In several sections, riding down, it isn't an option. In fact, I'm carefully walking the bike instead. One precarious step at a time, hands steady on the brakes on the handlebars. But in fact, more than the handlebars and the brakes, I'm ensuring solid footing, because it's more critical to making sure that neither me nor the bike goes sliding off into a direction that we don't intend to go. So it's slow, methodical, but in fact a little oddly calming. So there's no rushing a trail like this. It's in these pauses that the forest makes an impact. Hard breathing, pounding chest, crunch of tires in the snow. And that's when it becomes apparent, when I stop moving. The noise, it disappears, replaced by that particular deep winter stillness. Eventually, the forest becomes a little less close. The trail, it widens just enough. The snow firms up. Corners open up instead of tightening unexpectedly. There's a little more flow. I'm pedaling with some momentum. Not fast, but smooth. A little more pace and cadence. The bike begins to flow gently over the rolling terrain. I'm feeling like I'm tracking clean lines between the trees that now feel less intrusive or crowding, encroaching on my path. After the effort of the opening section, this midpoint stretch, it feels a little more generous and easygoing, almost kind. So it's in this middle section where the ride really finds its rhythm, with the sun again shining in through the trees, a cadence settling out along with my breathing, body temperature feeling good, and the bike hums quietly over snowpack just right. Nothing dramatic happens here. I'm just rolling along, and for this kind of ride and mini adventure, that's exactly the point. The winter forest. It's at this point it absorbs whatever urgency I brought in with me. Thoughts loosen up, time stretches out. By the time the cabin appears through the trees, I've been riding for about an hour, and it feels now like I'm arriving somewhere earned. The cabin, it sits quietly among the trees, snow-banked along its walls, and a thin ribbon of smoke rising among the chimney. No signing, no announcement, nothing special, just now and appreciation and an understanding. This is the place for a break. I lean the bike against the wall, snow crunching underfoot. I knew this stop was part of the plan, so I packed accordingly. A small camp cook set and coffee tucked into the frame bag that I carried in just for this moment. Take it out, step inside out of the cold. Immediately upon stepping inside, full-on warmth. A steady fire, it's already burning in the wood stove, left by earlier visitors. Not dramatic, not loud, practical. Instantly warming, accompanied by a slight soft hiss, crackle, and pop. I set the cook kit down on the table. It's all simple movements now. It's a familiar routine. Instant coffee. Nothing special or fancy. No real expectations. But wow, it tastes incredible. Maybe it's the cold, the effort, or perhaps simply the fact that I've stopped long enough to notice. Enjoying the cabin and the winter scenes outside drifting past the window, I continue to let the flames do what they do best. A pause that's earned, and I appreciate that this is what the hard part was for. Eventually, the warmth settles in deep into the bones, and it's enough now to carry with me on the ride out. So the ride out, it begins gently. What was uphill earlier now works in my favor. It's feeling like the bike's rolling much more willingly. My legs feel lighter. The trail, it's a little more familiar. I'm recognizing turns and trees, stops along the way. Yet, winter keeps a few cards, a few surprises. A handful of short, sharp climbs appear. Steep enough to require pushing once more. Snow is deep and soft enough to prevent shortcuts or cut corners. But overall, I'd say the tone has changed at this point, knowing that the hardest work is behind me. As I make my way back, I'm struck by how complete the day feels. In advance of coming out on this mini adventure, I planned carefully, gathered together the gear and dressed well, and yet the trail had still asked for more than I'd expected or planned for. That feels about right. This was a mini adventure. Compact, demanding, but deeply restorative. The difficulty and challenges made the ride just that much more meaningful. All the while, the forest did what it always does in the winter. Really pares things back, pares it down to the silence, peacefulness, stuff that matters. Thanks for riding along. If this kind of winter riding resonates with you, feel free to like, subscribe, or simply join me again next time. Until then, keep pedaling the long way.